Can you really talk to spirits with a Ouija board? There's something about the Ouija board that draws people in. It has been a part of pop culture for years, shrouded in mystery and fear. Many people, when they hear the name, immediately think of dark rooms, eerie candles, and spirits trying to communicate from the other side. But is the Ouija board really something to be afraid of? Or is it just a harmless game? To understand this, we need to take a look at where it came from and what it's really about. The story of the Ouija board begins in the late 19th century. It was 1890 when a man named Elijah Bond, along with Charles Kennard, patented the board as a way for people to communicate with spirits. But before they ever thought of calling it a Ouija board, there was already a growing interest in the idea of communicating with the dead. Spiritualism had become popular during that time, with people flocking to mediums and seances to contact their loved ones. They believed that spirits could be reached through a variety of methods, and the Ouija board was just another tool in that spiritualist toolbox. But what makes the Ouija board unique is how it works. It's essentially a flat wooden or cardboard board with letters, numbers, and sometimes words like yes and no printed on it. Two people place their fingers on a small, heart-shaped pointer called a planchette. The idea is that the planchette will move on its own across the board, spelling out messages from the beyond. When you first hear about it, you might think it sounds simple enough, just a game, maybe something fun to try with friends. But for some people, the experience feels very real. They feel like they're actually speaking to spirits. One of the biggest questions people ask about the Ouija board is whether or not it's real. Are the messages that appear on the board truly from the other side? Or is it all just a trick? Some people believe in the supernatural and swear by their experiences, while others say it's just a game, nothing more. So, let's dive into both sides of the argument and see if we can find any answers. On one side, there are countless stories of strange encounters with the Ouija board. People report having conversations with spirits, receiving warnings, or even seeing the planchette move on its own. One popular story comes from a woman named Sarah, who claims that she and her friends used the Ouija board one night, just for fun. At first, everything seemed harmless, just typical answers to their questions. But then, the planchette started moving in strange patterns, spelling out names they didn't recognize and delivering messages that seemed eerily specific. Sarah says that after that night, she began experiencing strange occurrences, objects moving, strange noises, and even what felt like a cold presence in her room. Other people tell similar stories. They claim to have felt a connection with the spirit, or even say that the board predicted the future in ways that turned out to be true. Some describe how the planchette moved faster and more erratically the longer they used it, as if the spirits were becoming more intense. And of course, there are the stories of people who claim the board opened up something dark, like a malevolent force that refused to leave even after the session ended. But then, there's the other side of the story, the side that says the Ouija board is nothing more than a psychological trick. Skeptics argue that the board works because of something called the ideomotor effect. This is when people unconsciously move their hands or bodies without realizing it. Essentially, when you place your fingers on the planchette, your mind might be nudging it without you even knowing. According to this view, when the board starts to spell out messages, it's not a spirit doing the talking, it's your brain making it happen. Your mind is working overtime, creating answers and responses based on the questions you ask, even if you're not consciously aware of it. One famous psychologist, Dr. Joseph B. Lapp, has suggested that the belief in spirits may simply be a result of our brains trying to make sense of random movements. When you ask a question and the planchette moves, your brain might fill in the blanks, interpreting those movements as meaningful communication. Some researchers argue that the people who use the Ouija board are simply influenced by their own expectations, beliefs, and fears. If you believe in spirits, you're more likely to see the messages that fit your beliefs. There's also the fact that many Ouija board stories tend to grow over time. People remember events differently than they happened, and sometimes, details get added in to make the story scarier or more mysterious. After all, the mind loves a good story, especially when it involves the supernatural. People might recall a particular message that came through the board, and over time, They might convince themselves that it was something important or supernatural, when, in reality, it was just a coincidence. So, where does that leave us? Is the Ouija board real, or is it all just a product of our imagination? Well, the truth is that both sides of the argument have their merits. The experience people have with the board is real to them, it's powerful, it's emotional, and it's often unforgettable. Whether or not that experience can be explained scientifically is another matter entirely. Maybe it's the ideomotor effect at play. Or maybe it's something else entirely that we don't yet understand. But what we do know is that the Ouija board taps into something deeply psychological. It plays on our emotions, our fears, and our curiosity about what happens after we die. It's also important to mention the role of belief in these experiences. If you believe in spirits, you're more likely to interpret strange events or messages in a way that confirms your beliefs. The Ouija board becomes a tool for exploring that belief, just as a fortune teller might use a crystal ball or tarot cards to connect with the unseen world. The very act of engaging with the Ouija board, of asking questions, sets the stage for you to find the answers you're hoping for, or even answers that surprise you. And that's what makes it so powerful for those who use it. It's not just a game, but a way to tap into something bigger. For some people, the Ouija board can feel unsettling, especially if they believe they've contacted something dark. Stories of haunted houses, strange events, and feelings of being watched after using the board are common. But many of these stories, too, can be explained by the power of suggestion. If you've just had a spooky experience with the board, your mind may be hyper-aware of every little creak or strange noise around you. It's easy to start connecting the dots, believing that the supernatural is at work. And of course, there's always the debate about whether or not it's dangerous. Some people argue that using a Ouija board can invite negative energies or spirits into your life. They warn against using it because it could open a portal to the unknown, letting in unwanted forces. But there's no scientific evidence to back up these claims. Instead, experts suggest that the fear people experience after using the board may be linked to the psychological effects of using it in the first place. When you approach something with fear and expectation, you're more likely to have a negative experience. So, is the Ouija board real? The answer, in many ways, depends on how you define real. If you mean real, as in physically interacting with spirits, there's no concrete evidence to prove that's the case. But if you define real as the emotional and psychological experiences people have when they use the board, then yes, it's very real. The Ouija board is a fascinating tool for exploring the mysteries of the mind, belief, and the unknown. Whether it's a game, a ritual, or something deeper, it holds power for those who believe in it. In the end, the Ouija board is a symbol of something much bigger than just a piece of wood with letters and numbers. It represents our need to understand the world around us, to make sense of the unknown, and to search for answers to questions we may never fully understand. Whether or not it's real, or whether or not it opens a portal to the other side, it's clear that the Ouija board will continue to capture our imaginations and spark our curiosity for years to come. If you've ever used the Ouija board yourself, you may have your own story to tell. Maybe you're someone who swears by its power, or maybe you're a skeptic who believes it's all just a trick of the mind. Whatever you believe, the Ouija board remains a fascinating part of our cultural history, an object that invites us to question what we know, what we believe, and what might lie beyond. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'll be exploring more intriguing stories, myths, and mysteries from all corners of the world. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, there's always something new to discover. Drop a comment below if you've ever had an experience with the Ouija board, and let us know what you think. Is it real, or just a game? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay curious.